What about what's next for Fergie? Because a royal insider has dropped a different clue about where Fergie's may be heading.
Something is happening behind royal walls that none of us ever expected to witness in our lifetimes. A woman who once stood at the heart of the British monarchy, who lived in one of its most prestigious estates for nearly 2 decades, has now been pushed to the very edge of the royal map. And in a twist that has stunned royal observers everywhere, she is refusing every traditional path that is supposed to contain her. She refuses Sandringham. She refuses the annex at her daughter's estate. She refuses to be tucked away quietly as a royal leftover. There is a moment when a woman who has been cornered decides she will not accept the life others have chosen for her, and today we are watching Sarah Ferguson cross that line. Before we dive in, there's something I need to share with you. Over the past few days, thousands have watched these stories unfold, but most haven't subscribed. If you're one of them, I invite you now to join us. Subscribe to Crownverse so you never miss the next chapter in this unfolding royal history. Sarah Ferguson has reached a defining moment, and everything swirling around her right now tells us that the old rules no longer apply. For decades, she lived in the shadow of Prince Andrew, sometimes willingly, sometimes because she had no real alternative. Their unusual cohabitation at Royal Lodge became one of the strangest and most fascinating royal arrangements of modern times. Divorced, yet inseparable. Publicly independent, yet privately intertwined. And as long as Royal Lodge stood between them and the world, the arrangement managed to survive. But once Andrew's scandal intensified, and King Charles took decisive action to force both Andrew and Sarah out of Royal Lodge, everything changed. That house wasn't just a residence. It was the last physical symbol of the life Sarah once had, a protected space, a royal buffer, a place where she could preserve some dignity and continuity without constantly confronting the consequences of Andrew's downfall. Losing Royal Lodge was not simply a logistical problem, it was a rupture of identity. Now, with her eviction confirmed and Andrew preparing to move to a smaller property on the Sandringham estate, Sarah is at a crossroads she never wanted but can no longer avoid. And this is where the real story begins, because instead of retreating into the shadows, she is doing something radically unexpected. She is rejecting the offers. She is rejecting the safety nets. She is rejecting the so-called solutions others have constructed for her. According to statements from her own spokesman, Sarah Ferguson will not be moving into the renovated outbuilding, the Granny Annex at her daughter's Cotswolds estate, despite media claims suggesting it. Those rumors have been explicitly dismissed, with representatives stating that she is exploring her own independent options and has not asked for accommodations from anyone. This rejection is important because the offer, whether real or rumored, symbolized something the palace would have quietly preferred: Sarah out of the way, contained, controlled, removed from proximity to scandal while still under a family umbrella. But Sarah said no. And then came the second rejection, the one that genuinely hints at a deeper emotional and political fracture. She reportedly refused the idea of moving to Sandringham, a place deeply associated not only with royal tradition, but with retreat. It would have placed her near Andrew again, under the king's umbrella, within the boundaries of royal management. A respectable retirement location for a woman whose footprint the palace might prefer to shrink. But Sarah said no again. She will not be relegated to a cottage near the man whose downfall dragged her back into scandal. She will not be hidden on an estate controlled by the monarch who has now stripped her former husband of titles, forced the family out of Royal Lodge, and allowed circumstances that resulted in her children's book being pushed off publication schedules. She does not want the future that others have crafted for her, and that forces us to look more closely at the deeper question. What does Sarah Ferguson really intend to do? Her representatives insist she is assessing options, that she will move forward independently, that she has not asked for provisions of any kind. These statements are polite on the surface, but they reveal something powerful beneath, a determination to reclaim control over her own narrative for the first time in decades. For years, Sarah played the role of supporter. She supported Andrew publicly. She supported her daughters in building stable lives despite the weight of their father's scandal. She supported the illusion that Royal Lodge could exist outside the turbulence of the modern monarchy. But with Royal Lodge gone, the safety net is gone too. And instead of clinging to the remnants of royal favor, Sarah seems ready to embrace something rarely seen from former royals: a life on her own terms. That brings us to the bigger emotional landscape, because her decisions cannot be explained simply by logistics or pride. There is something deeper happening, a shift in Sarah's sense of identity, loyalty, and the realization that perhaps she can no longer protect the very people she has always cared about most: Beatrice and Eugenie. Beatrice's alleged offering of the Granny Annex was more than an act of kindness. It was a daughter trying to shield her mother. But Sarah turning it down suggests she refuses to be a burden, refuses to be seen as a dependent, refuses to let her daughter's reputations become entangled with her displacement. Eugenie's property in Portugal, a luxurious estate surrounded by A-list celebrities, has been whispered about as another possibility. Some speculate Sarah might accept. Others say the palace would not approve. But again, nothing has been confirmed, and all suggestions so far remain unverified. What is clear is that Sarah's future is no longer tied to royal structures, and that alone is unprecedented. Meanwhile, Andrew is expected to move into a smaller property on Sandringham, a step down that reflects both his diminished royal role and the king's insistence on containing the scandal. Andrew wants staff, security, gardeners, a driver, a home that mimics the prestige he once enjoyed, but no longer has the right to claim. Whether he will get all of it remains unclear. But what we do know is this: Andrew is following a path that keeps him inside the royal sphere, contained, dependent, managed. Sarah is choosing the opposite. Her children's book being delayed, withdrawn, or reportedly pulped in some accounts is yet another blow, though these reports vary and remain partially unverified. What is undeniable is that her professional life has been impacted, and the timing is not coincidental. Publicity around Andrew's scandal has triggered ripple effects on everyone attached to him. And this is precisely why Sarah's rejection of both Sandringham and Beatrice's offer matters so much. She understands that proximity to Andrew equals proximity to destruction. She understands that the longer she remains attached to him, the harder it will be for her daughters to preserve their reputations and futures. She understands that if she wants to rise again, or even simply survive with dignity, she must step away from the gravitational pull that has defined her life for decades. This script, this moment in royal history, is not about Sarah Ferguson losing a house. It is about Sarah Ferguson refusing to disappear. Because disappearing into an annex would have been easy. Retreating to Sandringham would have been expected. But choosing independence? That is a declaration. A declaration that she will not go quietly. A declaration that she will not allow the palace to package her into a neat, silent box. A declaration that she will rebuild her life on her own terms, even if it means doing it without royal protection, without royal approval, and without the man she once defended through every controversy and crisis. Where she will go next remains unknown. Whether she chooses London, Portugal, a private estate, or a new chapter abroad, one thing is clear: Sarah is stepping out of the shadow and stepping into a future she is choosing for herself. And in a monarchy built on hierarchy, control, and unquestioned loyalty, that might be the most disruptive move she has ever made. If you want the next chapter of this unfolding story, Where she goes, what she chooses, and how this decision reshapes her daughter's roles in the royal future? Subscribe now to Crownverse, because this story is not nearing its end. It is just beginning.